Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here today because, man, we are diving into something absolutely wild. I mean, have you ever felt like life is just sort of happening to you? Like you're this tiny little boat just getting tossed around on a massive, unpredictable ocean. Well, today we're unpacking some source material that flips that entire idea completely upside down. We're going to look at a totally radical concept, the idea that physical reality doesn't actually work the way we were all taught in school. Instead, we're exploring this fascinating premise of how your own consciousness is actively shaping the physical world around you. So buckle up, because this might just shift your entire perspective.
So I want to kick things off with a massive question. What if the universe actually depends on you? It's a huge idea, right? Because normally we think of the universe as this giant, independent machine that just keeps on ticking, whether we're here or not. But the material we're looking at today, it suggests the exact opposite. What if reality isn't just happening to you, but it's actually actively responding to you? Like, what if the world out there is literally waiting for a cue from the world in here? Let's dive into exactly how that's supposed to work.
All right, let's look at this comparison, because this is where the big paradigm shift really happens. For a really long time, the standard view of reality was the Newtonian model, and that model is all about separation. It basically says that we live in a physical world governed by strict, unyielding laws, gravity, thermodynamics, things like that. In that old model, the universe is doing its own thing, completely independent of you. But then comes quantum physics, and things get really interesting. We start seeing a move away from that separation and toward a unity consciousness. Quantum physics brings up this incredible idea that reality might actually be shaped by the observer. Basically, your consciousness is actively causing reality to take a specific shape.
Now, what's super cool about this is that while it sounds like cutting-edge modern science, it's actually not new at all when you look at ancient spiritual traditions. I mean, thousands of years ago, a teacher named Hermes Trismegistus literally taught this exact same concept. He said, as above, so below, as below, so above. He was basically describing the world as a sort of hologram, a light matrix that acts kind of like a mirror. It reflects back the exact consciousness that's being projected onto it. So think about that. Modern quantum physics is essentially arriving at the exact same conclusion that these ancient teachings figured out millennia ago. It is all so incredibly connected.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, we have to understand where all these possibilities actually exist. In the quantum physics world, researchers like Dr. Joe Dispenza talk about this infinite field of possibility. And this field literally contains every single outcome and timeline you could ever potentially experience, period. And this maps perfectly to what spiritual teachers like Neville Goddard called the fourth dimension, a space holding infinite world lines. Or, if you look at ancient texts like the Kabbalion, they just call this infinite space the all. In this higher dimension, everything you could ever possibly be is already a done deal. It's a fact. All possibilities exist right now. So, if every outcome is already out there in this field, what actually determines the specific timeline you're walking through right now?
Well, let's get into that in part one, reality as a mirror. Let's look at the practical mechanics of how we're actually interacting with this infinite field every single day through our thoughts, our feelings, and just our general state of being. Here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. The mirror depends on you for its reflections. Think about when you stand in front of your bathroom mirror in the morning. If you're standing there frowning, there's absolutely no way you can force that reflection to smile back at you, right? If you want to see a smile, you have to smile first. Well, the quantum field, or the all, works exactly the same way. It's mirroring your inner world. Whatever you believe yourself to be, the mirror just reflects it right back. That infinite source is literally depending on you, the conscious observer, to choose the experience. If you act frantic in front of the mirror, it shows you a frantic reality. It literally cannot show you a successful, peaceful life unless you project that state first.
So how do we actually do this? Let's break it down into steps. Step one is simply assuming your desired state, smiling into that mirror of infinity. But then we hit step two. And oh man, this is where almost everybody gets tripped up. You have to navigate the linear 3D delay. See, time doesn't even exist in that higher, infinite dimension. Time is just a 3D concept for us down here. Because our daily experience is linear, there's naturally a built-in delay while a sequence of events unfolds to actually change the reflection. It doesn't happen instantly. But if you just persist in step one, holding that assumption, then by step three, the mirror invariably has to reflect it back to you. The mirror has no will of its own. It just obediently follows your persistent projection.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're thinking, okay, if I'm shaping reality, why is life so ridiculously hard sometimes? Why would a loving universe allow pain? And the source material explains this so beautifully with a virtual reality game analogy. Imagine you voluntarily agreed to be brainwashed, putting on this veil of amnesia just so you could play a fully immersive VR game. Which, given how tough life is, you gotta wonder who picks this difficulty setting, right? But the idea is, you do it to have a truly authentic experience. If you get hit in the game, you feel it, because you genuinely believe it's real. If the mirror just overwrote your choices, there'd be no real stakes, no adventure. The infinite basically limits itself just to experience what it's like to be you, right here, right now. And if you knew it was all just a game, you wouldn't be afraid, because you'd realize your true infinite self is completely, 100% unharmed.
All right, let's move on to part 2, your acres of diamonds. This brings us to the second half of our explainer, because it's one thing to know this, but how do we actually use it to change our physical environment? How does shifting your internal state literally shift the world around you? Well, the source material shares this incredibly illuminating real-world story from the creator of these concepts. A few years back, they were feeling incredibly stuck in life, and, big surprise, the mirror of the world proved them right. Get this, they actually lived in a condo building that had a free gym, and they completely ignored it for over a year. Why? Because their inner world was dominated by a consciousness of feeling stuck. They literally couldn't perceive the free, awesome resources sitting right in front of them. But the moment they applied these teachings and shifted their inner state to a consciousness of freedom, everything flipped. Now, the external world hadn't actually changed yet, but they felt amazing inside, and suddenly they started noticing all these opportunities and freedoms that were there all along. It felt like magic, but the reality was just finally reflecting their new state.
And this ties in perfectly with Russell Conwell's famous story, Acres of Diamonds. If you haven't heard it, it's about this farmer who gets so fed up with his life that he sells his farm to travel the world searching for diamonds, hoping to strike it rich. But what he didn't realize was that the very farm he sold literally had acres of diamonds buried right there in the soil. He just couldn't see them. The huge takeaway for us here is that you absolutely have to look within before you look at the outer world. Because if you're internally holding on to the consciousness of someone who's stuck, the quantum field is going to faithfully reflect that right back at you, and you'll walk right past the diamond sitting in your own backyard.
So how do you actually change that reflection? Well, you have to change the projection. The author of our source material used a very specific phrase when they were stuck in a job they absolutely hated and wanted financial freedom. They started projecting this exact thought into the mirror of reality. I am earning a lavish, steady, dependable income doing something I love with ease. And they didn't just passively repeat the words, they truly assumed the feeling of that state. And sure enough, after persisting through that 3D linear delay we talked about earlier, the mirror did what it has to do. It reflected back exactly that. They found financial ease and a deeply fulfilling life. The outer world actually physically molded itself to match their new inner projection. Which leaves us with this final, ultimate question for you to really sit with as we wrap up today's explainer. Who are you being right now? Are you projecting a person who's stuck, someone who is just a victim of circumstance? Or are you projecting freedom, joy, and abundance? Because remember, the quantum field, the all, the mirror, whatever you want to call it, it depends entirely on you. You are the captain of this ship. You have the total freedom of choice, right in this very moment, to just smile into the mirror of infinity. So, what reflection are you going to ask for today?